Hello, today we are here with Sonja from Seniors Helping Seniors, and she is going to talk to us all about aging at home. Thanks for coming today, Sonja.
Thanks for having me, Paris. Appreciate it. Yes, so aging at home. First off, what is that, right? A lot of us don't even know the term or what that phrase means. But basically, aging at home means for you to stay in your home as long as possible, safely and independently. So, with Seniors Helping Seniors, that's the type of service we offer, and our goal is to keep you at home as long as possible. So here we go, aging at home. First off, a little bit about Seniors Helping Seniors is we are a caregiver company, and we currently serve all of Denton, Tarrant, Wise, Johnson, and Collin counties. We currently work with those who are in their home or even sometimes at independent or assisted living. There is a multiple amount of services that we provide, which I will go into further later on as we talk more about aging at home. So here we are. So Seniors Helping Seniors and the services that we provide to keep you in home. We provide companionship. We help with errands around the home, like housekeeping, meal preparation, transportation, medication reminders. Our caregivers are also trained in Alzheimer's and dementia care. And if you have any of those little fur babies, we also help with pet care as well. We help with assistance around the home, walking, transferring from bed to chair, and we even help with bathing and dressing and things like that. What I want to highlight out of our services here is our transportation. So there are a lot of other services in our area that are just transportation based, where they pick you up and drop you off. With our caregivers, when it comes to transportation, we stay with you. So let's say you have an appointment at a doctor's office, we go and pick you up and we stay with you the entire time of your appointment. And if you give us permission and if you'd like for us to, our caregivers can go into the doctor's appointment with you as well. And this is sometimes necessary for a multitude of reasons, but sometimes what it is just helping to communicate what happened at the doctor's office with your loved ones. So, for example, we're in the doctor's appointment with you, you're getting your information from your doctor. At the end of our caregiver shift, our caregiver will update the house portal and give all the notes that are necessary for your loved ones.
Wow,
But yes,
that is awesome. I think that one I'm so glad you started off with that because I think that's a game changer because a lot of times that's the biggest disconnect is that information there.
absolutely. And this is something coming from experience. So I'm personally 4 hours away from my family,
Mhm.
and having communication is so important. So at the end of a shift, knowing how their day went at the salon or going to the
Right.
grocery store or what the doctor said and when the next appointment is very important. So our caregivers can communicate that information through our portal and what happened.
That's awesome.
Okay, great. So here we are, just a little review. What we'll be discussing a little further down is, of course, aging at home for not only yourself, but for your loved one and what those signs are. When is it time to get help? And 10 things to consider when hiring a care agency. And of course, the financial part of it as well. It's always part of it, right?
Right.
Okay, so thinking about aging at home for your loved one. So this is very important, especially if you are the caregiver currently right now for your loved one. One thing that we always like to ask our potential clients if they have their children with them or a spouse with them in the initial assessment, we'll ask them currently, how are you doing? Are you tired? Are you having trouble keeping up with taking care of yourself? Are you finding that you are just completely out of it, meaning just exhaustion? You can't remember where things are for yourself, and you just kind of feel like you're running on low, on zero. That's a very good key indicator about it's time to start discussing care for your loved one. And you'll notice things about your loved one who you're currently taking care of, right? Are there memory loss? Are you noticing there's physical changes? Are they having trouble getting from out of the bed into their chair? Are they having trouble feeding themselves? Maybe even their hygiene, they're having trouble keeping up with on their own. Once you start noticing those daily living activities are kind of struggling, that's another key indicator that it might be time to start discussing care for your loved one. A little bit further going down here, we little talked about already appearance, but driving, this is a hard one, right? Because we don't want to lose our independence. It's very hard for us to even think about there might become a time where we may not be able to drive anymore, but we have to think about this. It is a topic we have to discuss and think about. So if you noticed your loved one might be having trouble driving, whether it be for visual impairment or memory loss issues, this is something that needs to be discussed about. Now, how are we going to handle those transportation concerns? And of course, in the home, with Seniors Helping Seniors, we can go into the home and do a safety assessment if you're just kind of planning for the future. But if you start noticing that there are tripping hazards, there's spoiled food in the refrigerator, dirty dishes in the sink, dead plants, these are all kind of indicators that the everyday activities are slipping, and it's time to ask why. Now, for you, it is never a bad idea, and Paris, you would agree with me on this, right? You talk a lot about this, is planning
Absolutely.
early, right? Like there's no excuse, but it's never a bad time to start planning for your future and what the other half of your life is going to look like. So, for me, for example, currently right now, my husband and I, we live 4 hours away from my family. So for me, what does that look like personally? Are we going to stay up here? And if that's the case, then we were going to eventually need caregivers ourselves. So we may need to be starting planning about how that's going to look like for us. Are we going to be hiring an agency? Things like that. How long will you want to be planning to stay at your home, right? The answer is always long as possible. So, how can that happen? Make a list of pros and cons of your own situation. So, let's say you are like me and you're 4 hours away from your family, then what are your resources that you have available for yourself? Or if you are in town and your mom and dad live down the street from you, cousins live about 10 minutes away from your house, and if they're able to be a resource, then what does that look like? Because something we also need to think about is respite care. And what that is, when does the caregiver get help? And so that's something to also think about as well. Um, Discuss your thoughts with your family and friends. Remember, they're part of the decision making as well. Even though you may not have it on paper, those power of attorney type of discussions, it's still a plan that needs to be talked about. So they're aware of how you want to move forward. Consider again your personal situation at your home. So, what are your limitations? What are your preferences? A lot of discussions that we have with our caregivers or our clients is we're in their home and we get to know the client, right? And so we talk about what they still want to do as long as they can. So if someone wants to go to a senior center as long as they can, okay, how are we going to make that happen?
Yep, that second bullet point, the likes and dislikes are so
Yes,
important.
yes. That, and we still like to go get our nails done in the salon.
Right.
So if that's something we still want to do, then absolutely. If our interest is going to the libraries or going on to a park and just sitting down and have a cup of coffee, mingling, how are we going to be able to maintain that and still make it happen further down the road? Of course, those everyday things. How are we going to get food? How are we going to get the general house taken care of and maintained? And of course, there's that financial thing that we need to talk about as well, but it is definitely part of the decision making. So you have a plan. What you should use or why you should use a caregiver agency. Um, for me, point blank, is if you're tired and you're having trouble just getting through the day, it's time to get help. I know it's always going to be a hard decision to make, and we come across this a lot. We think we can do it all for as long as possible, but the thing is that we all need help. And so
Right.
when you start feeling that kind of energy, you just feel like you can't keep up. That's a key indicator that you're probably about 2 steps behind and you need to get help. So life doesn't have to be hard or complicated. Those daily activities of life, they can still continue without it being um, troubling or hard.
Mhm.
And that's at the point, we got to be able to accept it's okay. And it's going to come a time when we're all going to need help.
Right.
And it's important, seniors helping seniors, we're an option. And I'd love to help everyone that we can. But I also want to make sure that it's very important that you choose an agency that the whole family feels comfortable with because someone is going into your home. And we want to make sure that once you make this decision about having someone in your home, they're going to be part of your daily life, right? So make sure that you find the right company, the right caregiver to make this transition easy for you. And I'll say the reason why I love seniors helping seniors is because we do an assessment and we also follow up with meet and greets. We really want to make sure that the client and the caregiver have a great relationship, have a great rapport, because we're going to be here for the rest of your lives. We're going to be watching you, taking care of you. And eventually, a lot of those relationships, the client and caregiver relationships, end up being friendships. And so we really take that into consideration and make that a very important part of the next step because you're bringing someone into your home and they're
Right.
going to be taking care of you, and you're going to be very vulnerable at some times, and so you really want someone who's going to make you feel safe and comfortable.
Right.
Okay, so I've kind of already talked a little bit about this, but the top 10 considerations when hiring an in home care service agency. So, health needs. You got to look, do you have any certain accommodations? Does the company offer medication management? Are your caregivers experienced working with memory or impaired clients? So, very important to take into consideration when hiring a company. You want to know who is on staff and how they train and background check. Two, help and needs. So, what kinds of household tasks can your mom or your loved one get help with? Can caregivers run errands for mom? And can caregivers help take care of and play with dad's dog, right? So, again, this all ties into your home, your day to day ins and outs. Is your caregiver now, who you're going to be able to bring into your home, going to be able to basically jump into your lifestyle, right? Are they going
Right.
to be able to just kind of merge and come in and be part of the family? Very important. That's why those assessments and meet and greets are very important. Personal preferences. Does your caregiver match, with mom's certain preferences, right? And we get this a lot.
Yeah.
We have people are smokers, and so
Right.
we're not going to bring a caregiver who gets sick with smoke, right? So
Yeah.
we need to know your preferences. We need to know your lifestyle, where you're currently at. We're going to meet you with where you're at, right? And
Right.
that's why we're going to have those meet and greets. They're important.
Yeah, they are.
They
Because it
are.
doesn't work if the person doesn't, if they don't match, then you won't get the full value.
Exactly, exactly. And that would just make it a bad day for everyone, right? So you want to make sure that everyone is happy. Transportation. Here we go. So again, very important. Does the caregiver service offer transportation? How does that look like? What does that entail? Does the caregiver use their own vehicle, or does mom really love her car and she only wants to be in her car, right? So is that going to be an exception? So those things we got to think about. Language, very important, right? It's the whole rapport, relatability. If there are any specific languages one speaks, got to make sure everyone is understood at the home, right? So something to take into consideration. Availability, this is very important. You have to know what times and days your mom, your loved one, or you really need the help. We really ask this question because we really want to make sure that the person who we're talking to really understands those days, your schedule. And I want to point this out and talk about this a little bit because for those who have dementia or Alzheimer's,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain times of day where agitation might occur for someone who is unfamiliar for no apparent reason.
Right.
So you really have to know what the whole day looks like for your loved one or for yourself. And then that way, when you're talking to a home care agency, you can say, you know what, for some reason around 4 or 5 o'clock, we seem to be really struggling. So Monday through Friday from 4 to 8 would really help us. So something to think about. Care management. Do you provide care management services? And what is the process for care management? Care management. This, I want to say, is just basically everything in totality, right? So, what type of services does everything entail? And that also talks about the communication part. So, when I was discussing earlier, the caregiver will talk about, the day, import the information into the family portal. It's just everything in totality, how the beginning of the process looks to the end of the day shifts. Quality management. How do you monitor your caregivers? How do you track and ensure the quality of mom's care? And if I have a problem with a caregiver, who should I contact? This is something that is very important. You want to make sure that the home care agency is licensed and bonded. You want to make sure that if you do have a problem or a concern, who you can contact. So it's very important from the very beginning when you're having your initial assessment, when you're having your first meet and greet, these steps and processes. We definitely want to make sure everyone has all the information that's available to them, and then that way they'll know where to go. Insurance and liability answered, right? So
Yeah.
make sure they're bonded and insured. Background checks, very important. What's all included? Very important to ask these questions when you're doing an assessment with your home care agency, how they do the background checks, and make sure that they are licensed and bonded. Qualifications. We all want to know qualifications, right? Very important. So ask for references. Let your home care agency know this is exactly who I'm wanting. They need to have these type of qualifications. And it's the home care agency's job at that point to make sure they connect you with the correct caregiver who meets your standards. There's no shame in being picky. We want you to be picky. We want you to know what you want so we can provide you the best caregiver. Paying. So here we go. Paying, the fun part, right?
Right.
There are multiple ways to pay for caregiver services. A lot of companies have their options. I will tell you for seniors helping seniors here in the area that I work with, how we accept payment is long-term care insurance. We're also contracted with the VA. So if a veteran qualifies through their VA benefits, they could potentially get a caregiver at no cost. Also, for a surviving spouse of a veteran, if they qualify, they could potentially get assistance for care. But other than that, it is private pay, and each agency will have their specific rates. I will say that ours, it stays the same. So if need increases, the price does not change. And we also offer 24/7 care as well. But look into all of your policies that you have, and Paris can probably even talk more about this too. At this point, you know what health insurance can cover, Medicare, Medicaid, what all the options are, because there's some agencies that can't accept health insurance.
Sonja, what's the kind of like starting hourly rate for your services?
Yes, for my particular area, we are $33 an hour.
Okay.
Yep.
Which is good to know. I love asking every year because that's something to think about when you're planning out, because if it's 2026 and it's 33 an hour, you have to be mindful of that plan. So perfect.
You do. We do. And that is something to think about. And I will even say this, we work with an assisted living locator service as well, who's part of our network, and she gives great advice. So she always states to plan for inflation between 3 to 5% every year. So take all of that into consideration and what your plan looks like and how you're going to financially be prepared for it. So it's something to keep all of those things into consideration.
For real.
But yeah, here we go. Long-term care insurance, VA, or private pay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for me, Paris. Anything that, any further questions, anything we should kind of be going over with a little bit more?
Well, I love this is great. And I think like I really one slide for sure that stood out, all of them for sure. But thinking of things to look at when you know that it's time to get more information, like dirty dishes, expired food. That really stood out to me. I was thinking, I have an older mother, and a lot of times it would be like she put away the soup and she said she was going to put it into smaller bowls, and now it's been 3 days before it's done. So I think that's nice. Also, like, so I know this is it more so like how fast does it take to get somebody onboarded? Like if I decide that I need the services, I don't know, how long does it kind of take to get someone up and running?
It can take as quickly as between 24 to 48 hours. So
Okay.
it doesn't take long at all. The only course would be just scheduling the initial assessment and
Mm-hmm.
then setting up that meet and greet. So those would
Mm-hmm.
be the only time frame things. Now, of course, if you're a veteran, and you need help onboarding to verify your benefits,
Yeah.
just depending on how long it takes with the VA,
Mm-hmm.
can add maybe a few weeks,
Right.
but
Right.
other than that, usually we found out with private pay, it can happen within a matter of a week. Long-term care insurance, once that policy is contacted saying you're going to start with us and
Mm-hmm.
getting that process going, can take about a week or two.
Is there a certain, like, say I get matched with Sonja, I love her, I needed her, maybe 20 hours initially, but then I'm getting better, but I still want to make sure I still have access to Sonja. Is there something, is there a certain like way you keep up with that, or how do families navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. With that, family portal is one way to communicate with our management and our
Hmm.
scheduler about the needs. But we usually like to do monthly assessments. We'll follow up with our clients, check in, say, hey, how are things going? Um, are your needs increasing or decreasing? So we really keep in constant contact with our clients and our caregivers as well. We do have a minimum per week hours.
Hmm.
Minimum is 8 hours a week, and
Okay.
we like to split that up into two shifts, so two 4-hour shifts.
Hmm.
But again, we can go as long as 24/7 care as well.
And another one that was interesting, I didn't think about, is that an option for the caregiver to drive my car?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a preference, and I'll say this, that my grandparents, they're very particular about their vehicle and how they get from and to places.
Right.
And this is a hi to my grandparents.
Right.
But there's a certain way they like to get in and out of a vehicle, and they
Yeah.
have a preference for that. So, and I'm sorry, I thought I had silenced things, but here we are, technology. But yeah, that is an option. So it's about how your everyday can be consistent, how your everyday can still be the same. It's just we're adding a friend.
Mm-hmm. And this is so great. And like you said, there's no like age requirements. So even like you see a lot of younger folks that have like if I needed my hip replaced, there's not an age requirement to use the senior, or is there for senior
No,
citizens?
not really. We try to help everyone as much as
Okay.
we can. And what makes us really special with Seniors Helping Seniors is our caregivers. We hire mature caregivers.
Yeah.
So we definitely hire those who have been a caregiver their whole life, or they're even
Okay.
retired nurses, retired LVNs,
Mm-hmm.
or simply retired, and they are also missing the companionship part of it as well, right? So yeah, we can help as many of all kinds. It's just our motto with Seniors Helping Seniors, our caregivers just tend to be a little bit more on the mature
That
VIP
makes sense.
side, right? Is what I like to call it.
It sounds
It-
so good. I was ready to think of like who my friends need to like,
yeah,
but yes, yes.
yes, yes.
No, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, good. Thank you so much. I think it's great. I definitely want to have you come back again. I wanted to go over kind of a high level on this, named it perfectly, or went over it perfectly, because it's great reminders to think about like what's really going on at home and planning for the future, because we all know someone that went through something, and we're all kind of in that scenario here with our family. So thank you so much for that
Thank you for
information.
having me, Paris. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
For sure. All right, I'm going to log us off.